trans panel. I'm Mrs. Savitsky. I'm the GSTA advisor. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I just wanted to welcome you today and also ask for you to please use your technology respectfully. These guys are cooler than me as a teacher in that they're like, yes, get your technology out. They're going to have a pear deck for you to use and pose questions, but I want to remind you a couple things. One, if you're not posing a question, please have your phone or your iPad away. And two, the questions that you do pose, please let them be respectful. Right? This crew of people, they're working hard to educate you and give you some information that you might not know. And it's vulnerable to be up here. They're putting themselves in a unique position, so please be respectful of that. But also ask questions, because that's what makes the panel more interesting and engaging for you guys. So without further ado, without further comment, I'm going to hand it over to Blake.
Hello. So thank you all so much for coming to this panel and supporting Ally. We've all worked very hard to make this happen for all of you. So if you could all take a second and take out an iPad and phone and log into our pear deck, which is right here. Do you all know how to go into pear deck? Just give me a thumbs up when you're ready. Basically, everything I ask them will be anonymous, but I am going to see them through my iPad. So basically, you can ask any question. Nothing is a stupid question. If we get a lot of questions, I can't promise we'll answer them all. We'll try to stay a little after so you can come and ask us some questions. So without further ado, let's
I'm Em. I'm a junior. I use he, her pronouns, and I'm the treasurer of the GSTA.
I'm Jay. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm a junior.
I'm Kaylin. I'm a sophomore, and I use she, her, and they, them pronouns.
My name is Blake. I am a senior, and I use they, them pronouns, and I'm the president of the GSTA.
I'm Giada. I'm a freshman, and I go by they, them pronouns.
I'm Vivian. I'm a sophomore, and I use they, them pronouns.
So, someone who is cisgender is a person who identifies with the gender they were assigned at birth, and someone who is transgender is someone who identifies as another gender that they were assigned at birth. So, when things are binary, there are two things. There's one and the other. In this case, it's boy or girl or male or female. If you go back just so we have the bigger, the gender red person. So this is the gender red person. It shows you like who you're attracted to, whether that's more men or more women. Your identity, or your gender, whether you're
a boy or a girl in your brain, and your expression is how you present yourself. Can you go back to the other one? So all of these things are on spectrums. I may identify myself as a boy and dress very masculine, or like Ms. Sabisky, who identifies as a woman, but also dresses a little bit more masculine. Or identifies as a woman and dresses very feminine. Expression isn't dependent on your identity. So you have binary identities, like male or female, and binary trans people who are males who identify as females, and females who identify as males.
Okay, so on top of this, we also have what is considered non-binary, which is a identity that doesn't really directly associate with one binary or the other. They don't identify as a boy or a girl, and they're somewhere in between. Can you go to the next slide? So that's the start of that. There you go.
Yeah, so binary, what they were just explaining. So we can see the spectrum here. And binary are going to be the two extremes of the spectrum. So right down here would be man, and right down here would be woman. That's binary. Does everyone get that? Okay. Nice. Awesome. So non-binary is going to be the stuff in the middle. People who don't identify as being a man or a woman. How's that? Are you good? Awesome. So gender expression is how we present ourselves, how we dress, is all Em was saying. And so we can see, again, both sides of those extremes, the binary of gender expression, and we can also see stuff in the middle and what we call androgynous, which is just, it means basically presenting yourself in a way that is gender neutral. So like your style isn't really very masculine or really feminine, it's pretty much in the middle. So it's, like Em was saying, very important to remember that gender expression and gender identity don't have to correlate, but they can, if that makes sense. How are we doing with that? Does that make sense? Awesome.
So pronouns is something that changes for most trans people. It's like words that we use instead of saying a person's name over and over again in a sentence. Like instead of saying Sally decided that Sally wanted to pet Sally's dog, you could say Sally decided that she wanted to pet her dog, which is an example of she/her pronouns. You know, you use them all the time, and that's just how you define the words. But the most common ones are she, her, hers, he and his, and they and theirs, and singular they, them. We'll talk about that in a second. But it's kind of, people believe that they pronouns should only be used in the plural, which is referring to more than one person, which isn't really true anymore because English does change. So like the usage of pronouns can change over time. And there's also points in the past of English at which they, them was used in the singular as well. Writers like Shakespeare used they, them in the singular. People might use they, them pronouns because it's more gender neutral. So people that are non-binary usually use they, them pronouns, but anybody can use them. Something that also kind of goes with pronouns is a preferred name. So people may come to you with a preferred name that's different from the one they're given at birth. And
So dysphoria is something that comes along with being trans, and it basically means that you don't feel comfortable in your body. And so what that can mean, if somebody was born in a male's body, but their gender identity is female, they're likely to feel uncomfortable with their male body. Does that make sense? Awesome. Cool. So something we like to talk about with dysphoria is something called binding, which is when people who are born in a feminine body but don't identify as feminine use something called a binder, or something that makes their chest appear flat to minimize their dysphoria. So in media, binding is not represented very well. And this is the reason we like to discuss this in the panels. Does everyone know what an ace bandage is? Yeah? So it's basically like if you hurt your ankle or something, you wrap it with an ace bandage. Cool. So those basically constrict, and if you're if you wrap your chest in an ACE bandage, what will happen is when you try to breathe, it will constrict. So that can be very, very dangerous. And a lot of the times in the media, when we see trans people binding, we often see it with an ACE bandage. In fact, I've never seen it not with an ACE bandage. And I like to say this because I just want to say, if you are somebody who is binding, please do not bind with an ACE bandage. It can be very serious to your health. You could end up breaking a rib, and that could be very, very dangerous. So yeah, that's just something we like to talk about.
To help out, you can look for teachers that have a little safe space sticker on their doors. That's usually a safe place you can go to ask questions, or to any of us if you have questions. Or you can come to any of the GSTA meetings if you're curious. And just generally ask questions.
Yeah, so one thing I just got a question on here and I completely forgot to mention it. I didn't mention what you're actually supposed to bind with. So this right here, this picture, is a binder. So these are just safe ways to bind. They kind of look like sports bras, but they they don't compress, they just flatten the appearance of your chest while safely allowing you to breathe. They do have a few restrictions, like you're not supposed to wear them when you work out or more than 8 hours. But you can buy them online. Usually, the two most popular are Underworks and GC2B. If you have any questions about it, I'm happy to answer anything. I'm sure any of these people who have a binder or know anything about them can also help you if you are in need of one. All right, so that's the end of our presentation. If you all want to take a minute and just write down a few questions you have on your Pear Deck, and we'll answer them. You can take a minute to talk notes yourself for a second.
Blake.
To educate different classes and have people come in and learn things and invite guest speakers in. We are currently working on putting a GSTA in the middle school to create more of a safe space and a place for people to explore their identities in the middle school. We are a safe space that you can come in if you're nervous about coming out, if you just need a place where you feel you can be yourself. We do go to Pride and march in that.
Something really important about GSTA, I feel, is that we rarely ever cancel meetings because we have nothing to do. So if there's just a time when we really don't have anything for the GSTA that's really productive, we're still probably going to have a meeting because we still always want to provide that safe space as many times as possible, because for some people that's the only place where they can go where they feel comfortable going by the pronoun, the name they feel comfortable with. So if you want to be involved with the GSTA, please let us know. Please come to the meeting. They're usually on the announcements when we have them. We have an Instagram, SPHS.GSTA, that I believe has a remind code. If it's not, I'll check later and I'll put it on there. Which I send out a little remind every Monday telling where our meeting is, because sometimes it changes. But they're Mondays after school. But if you'd like to come, it's open to everyone. If you are trans, how do you go about playing gendered sports? Yeah, would you like to answer that?
So, I play field hockey in the fall. Field hockey has all sorts of weird rules about who can play. It's, in America, it's primarily a girls' sport. So, you can only play if you are, usually if you were born female, or if you are not on any form of hormones. But most sports are fairly happy to take you as the gender you identify as, and I do play a girls' sport, but the team is wonderful about being respectful of pronouns and stuff like that.
And I think it just overall comes down to comfortability, like what team you're more comfortable playing on. I don't do any sports, so it's not an issue for me. What should I do if I don't know someone's preferred pronouns?
Ask.
Honestly, I think you'd probably rather you ask than just kind of leaving this gray area of like not knowing. I think that, in fact, they might be really happy when you ask them that, because something that like a lot of people don't do is when you meet people, you don't really ask like what are your pronouns or introduce your own pronouns. But it's also something that can be really comforting to trans people, and also you can't really like just tell people's pronouns based off the way they look. So it can be just really respectful to just ask.
And if you're too awkward to ask someone's pronouns, when you first meet someone, you can just say, "Hi, I'm such and such, and these are the pronouns I use." And that usually gives them the idea to give you their pronouns.
Yeah, and something that goes on to the next question says, what's the importance of introducing yourself with your pronouns? So obviously this isn't something we ask you to do every single time you introduce yourself. But if you're comfortable sharing your pronouns when you introduce yourself, if you're not trans, it's going to make a trans person feel so much more comfortable. Because I don't know how many of you saw Gia's presentation, but she said something which I really liked. It's our secret language of being an ally. If you ask someone's pronouns, we automatically feel that support coming from you. What is an umbrella term and what is an example?
So an umbrella term is a broad term. I would think of it like a bowl. Like it catches a lot of things. So trans is an example of an umbrella term. We've defined it for you as an umbrella term for people who identify as something other than the gender they were assigned at birth, but that catches lots of identities like trans men, trans women, non-binary people, people who are gender fluid, people who are agender. All of these things sort of fit into this broad definition of one thing that's an umbrella term.
Is dysphoria a mental illness, and it does transitioning help with that? So dysphoria, technically yes. Basically, what happens when you go, if you want to start medically transitioning, which means taking hormones and getting surgeries to help with your transition, basically what happens is you go to someone called a gender therapist, and they evaluate you to see if you have dysphoria, and you get diagnosed with dysphoria. And then you can go about your transition. But it's a lot of medical and doctor stuff. I don't know if any of you have experience.
The other thing is that transitioning is not always medical.
Yes.
Usually step one is social. It is doing things like cutting your hair, wearing more clothes that align with your gender identity, and telling people your preferred pronouns. It's usually first a social step before it's anything medical.
Yeah, definitely. That was a good question. Thank you. Could you share your coming out stories only if you're comfortable, of course?
I'll start. I came out to my mom just by telling her in the car. My dad is a different story. I threw a book at him, basically saying they, them pronouns and how to use them. I literally just threw a book at him and ran. I want to do it over again. I really do.
I mean, yeah, that's a good example of how stressful it can be. I mean, it wasn't easy for me. I had to like come out for my sister because she was like really more educated about it. But so I'm more open about it to my mom, and she's like really understanding, and I'm really lucky to have parents that are willing to learn about it. But if you don't feel comfortable coming out and like you fear for your like your own safety in any sense, then it's not worth it. You should value your own health first. But if it's something that's important to you and you trust the people that you're coming out to, that's definitely do it.
So my favorite story when I talk about my coming out story is when I came out to my sister. So I was absolutely terrified to come out to my sister with no real good reason. Like, she's such a supportive person. And we're really close. So I don't know why I was so scared, but like Giada was saying, it's a really scary and vulnerable thing, and you never really know how safe you are until it happens. So I was terrified. So I told her by texting her while I was in the same room as her, because I just couldn't utter the words. So I texted her, I'm non-binary. And the first thing she asked me was, what name do you want me to call you? And that was just a very pure moment for me because my parents struggled a lot with my name change. And it was very validating that she was just so open and so willing. And like, right from the get-go, she was trying so hard. Obviously, she made mistakes. We all make mistakes. Like, all of us have misgendered people. Like, all of you have probably misgendered people. It happens. You're not terrible people because of it. Don't worry. We'll talk a little bit more about misgendering people in a second. But, yeah, it was just a very nice thing.
Mine's kind of more recent, just because I came out essentially a while ago. It's not that I work right now. But my coming out story for my gender is actually still going on. I came out to my mom, I want to say, a few weeks ago to a month ago. She found out because she mentioned that a friend of mine had already started using they pronouns, and then a friend's mom told my mom, and then she thought I didn't use it anymore. I still do. So I told her in the car. She doesn't really fully understand it yet, but she's trying and she's asking questions and everything. I've come out to a small circle of friends and they've all been really nice about it, which is a pleasant example. But there are people that may not accept you. Like, some people can't come out to certain parents because one parent might not be accepting of some stuff, or something. So that's also something that happens when you come out, because sometimes you don't always get accepted, and that can be hard, but it happens.
I actually don't really remember my coming out story. I actually asked my parents the other day, but I think it was that they found out that I was using a different name at a friend's house, and something with like my parents and stuff, but yeah, they were pretty good about it. It was a bit hard with name change. They were good at pronouns, but they listened to a lot of audiobooks about it, and they were really attractive.
One thing I'll just say before I tell my story is that coming out is always stressful. No matter how you think it's gonna go, it's always stressful. And I'd like to think that my coming out story is long dead and gone, but this is the fourth time I've gotten up this week and said to a group of peers and some strangers and said, like, I'm a trans man. And so I'm still coming out to new people every day. But one thing, both my parents are teachers, and one thing you should know about teachers is that they never, ever want to stop learning. they always want to know more. You introduce anything new to them, and they want to know everything, and they want to be educated because they're educators. And so when I came out to my parents, they coupled up every bit of information that they could get their hands on and learned and became an advocate and were just completely and wholly accepting. I like to say a lot that ignorance isn't a bad thing. It's just not known. And so when I came out to my brother 4 years ago now, he was 10 years old and didn't know anything about what it meant to be trans. So we explained to him, I'm trans, I go by these pronouns, and his only question for me was, does this mean you're gonna like sports more? And unfortunately the answer for him was no. But it's a great story of like, ignorance isn't bad, and it's just not knowing what's going on.
When you wear a binder, is it ever super uncomfortable? Yes.
And well, I mean, it depends. For some people, like, if you can't get the right size, because a lot of it's ordering it online, so like you can't be 100% sure if it's gonna fit. But yeah, the binders can be quite tricky.
Hot days, they're the worst.
Oh, yes.
And if you have asthma, it's not fun either. I have asthma, by the way.
So with binders, as they have like a period of time where they work well and then they just kind of like stop working well. So as you wear a binder, they kind of like wear in and they get a lot more comfortable. When you first get a binder though, like and it's brand new, it's just kind of like, oh my god. And I would say if you're like getting your first binder, don't feel like you have to start wearing it all day. I would like put it on and then like after a few hours, if it's starting to get uncomfortable, take it off. Don't hurt yourself. But yeah, after a while, like you get so used to it and like if they're grown in by then, it's just like you don't even notice it anymore.
No matter how many years you wear a binder, every time you get a new one, it is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like, you wear it for a couple of hours and you're like, man, this needs to be worn in.
If I'm questioning who is the best person to talk to, not like specific names, just like in general.
Any of us, a trusted adult, a trusted close friend, anybody that you trust, basically.
People that you know will love and support you and know things about the community.
And I think it also matters like what you're comfortable with. If you're like if you really want to explore your gender more, but you're not really comfortable with telling anyone yet, you don't have to. No one's make. But if it's important to you to just talk to someone, even though you're not really sure of your identity, that's also very valid because like sometimes you just need to talk to someone.
Do you think South Portland is a good environment for LGBTQ kids? If not, what needs to change?
For the most part, yes, because we do live in like a pretty liberal area, so I think that especially with Ally, it makes me happy to like educate our peers. It's like, but I mean, like with middle school, it was kind of harder because like it's like a lot of people didn't know what it is like to be like queer or non-binary, so it would often just kind of because they didn't understand it would be like kind of not as accepting, so that maybe people that are questioning is kind of uncomfortable. But here, I was surprised a little bit by like how open they're about this conversation, and I think that's amazing. And I think that this conversation is about like just learning about it.
I think anything that we're struggling with as a school is happening in pockets. So there's little groups of people who don't totally get it, and it's understandable if they don't get it. But as a school, middle school and growing up with a lot of these kids, we've learned a lot as a community and we've grown a lot.
So did any of you legally change your name, and can you talk a little bit about that? Oh. Yep, that's all. So yeah, I changed my name legally. Did any of you? Cool.
My
I think
parents
we're
won't allow
debating
me.
on it, but no.
Okay.
My parents won't allow me until I'm 16.
Yeah, that happens a lot. So I have legally changed my name twice. Both times were not my first name. So I came out 4 or 5 years ago, and it took a little bit of time for my parents to get used to the idea of me changing my name. So our first compromise was me changing my middle name to Blake. So I lived with my first name for a while, and my middle name was Blake. And then just this summer, I legally changed my first name to Blake, and I got rid of the middle name, which was the worst decision I've ever made because my name could have been Blake Morin, and I think that would have been the best thing. But it's not, unfortunately. It's just Blake Morin. I don't have a middle name now. I could go back and change it, but that would mean I have 4 legal names in my whole life, which would be very interesting. So basically what happens is you have to fill out a ton of paperwork before.
A ton.
Yeah,
Of
it's
paperwork.
crazy.
You fill out paperwork, you mail it, they send you more, you mail it, they send you more, you
Yeah.
mail it, takes forever.
So then you get your court date, and you have to go to probate court in Portland, or if you're changing your name here, you go to the one in Portland. And you go into this tiny little courtroom, and you have to sit at this table, and the judge basically just says, "You want to change your name to this?" You go, "Yep," and he's like, "Granted." And then that's basically what happens, unless there's if you're changing your name to something really obscure, that's not normally a name, they might ask you a few questions about it, because it would be your legal name and it would be all legal documentation. So, but usually it's just 5 minutes.
You do sit through a lot of ridiculous name changes. People go up and they're, you're gonna change your name to this. They're like, "Are you sure?" You're like, "Yup." You're like, the most random spellings. You see a lot of new parents who've made mistakes on birth certificates. Yeah, it was an accident. Spelled it wrong.
And you never realize how much your name is on legal stuff until you change your name. So the process of changing your name is a lot longer than just going to court and changing your name. Once you do that, you have to change your name on literally everything. And it takes a long time. And I just finished doing that, not that long ago, and I changed my legal name back in July.
Every time you think you're done, you're not.
Yeah,
You
there's more.
will find a new document
Yeah.
that needs to have.
Yeah, I'm
your
probably
name
still
on it.
not done.
I'm still not done. It's been 3 years.
The funniest thing though, the hardest part was getting my name changed on College Board. They required the most out of anyone, which was very interesting to me that they required more than my bank and all of that stuff. So yeah, I had to wait a month before I could change my name on College Board, which was very interesting.
It's easier to change it on my passport than it was to change it on college. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
How can I help a friend who's binding unsafely?
I mean, the only way that I would probably push that is just talk to them, because they may not realize what's unsafe what they're doing is, and even if they do, it might just be out of desperation, which is kind of sad. But I think it's good. The most you can do is really just give a shoulder to lean on, and be good support for them and try to keep them safe. There's only so much you can do because you don't really change that they're trans or can't really stop them from doing unsafe binding physically.
So I believe all we have time for is one more question, and I like this question. It says, how did you pick your name? For those of us that
This is kind of a funny story. I was in the girls' bathroom in this school, just on my phone, scrolling through names, and I came across the name Vivian. I said it out loud a couple of times, and I decided that I liked it. I went up to one of my friends and said, hey, how does the name Vivian sound? And they said, oh, I like that name. I'm like, cool, that's my name now.
I saw the name Blake on an Instagram page that said cool gender neutral names, and then Blake was on there. I was like, ooh, I like that. I had a name before that, and I'm not gonna say it because it was so bad. And when you're trans and you're changing your name and you're so disconnected with your birth name, once you find the name that works for you, it just clicks. You're like, oh, that's my name. And I've met people and I tell them my birth name and they're like, you look so much more like Blake, and it just suits me so much more, honestly.
I never changed my name, but not really. I still go by the name I was given at birth. Because in case you didn't catch it in my introduction, my name is Giada. Even though it's a 5-letter syllable word, people still have trouble with it because it's the uncommon name because it's an Italian name. There's this one teacher I have that still does not pronounce it right, and I don't have the guts to tell them that they're not saying it right, which is fine because they still know he's talking to me. But that just says how social awkward I am. But that's one of the reasons why I don't really feel like changing it, because it'd be hard for me. It would be a teach for other people, and also if people have trouble remembering my name, which is pretty common, I just ask them to call me G. Because it's just the first 2 letters of my name, G-I. People always think it's pronounced E, but it's not. It's just, because, G is not a vowel, but it's pronounced like a vowel anyway, so but yeah.
So I looked up a bunch of names online and I made a list. And so actually what happened is that I was talking to Em on the phone about it, and at one point he called me Jay, and I just...
In my defense, Jay did say that one was their favorite. My name has always been a lot of family names. My birth name was a family name, and so I felt that it was only fitting that my new name was a family name. So both my grandfathers on either side are Edmund and Daniel, and so my first name is Edmund Daniel. I have a whole lot of full names, so a lot of times I say I'm M, E-M, and people are like, just M? And I'm like, you want my full name is Edmund Daniel G. Ready, so that's a whole lot more. A little too much for me.
All right, so that's all we have time for. We had a ton of questions, and I'm so sorry we couldn't get to them all. Thank you all so much for coming.